is Chelsea Marsh, and for this generational narrative, I interviewed my mom, who is 42, and my great aunt, who is 65. I'm going to review my mom's interview first. When I asked her to please tell me a little bit about herself, she told me that she was born on January 15th in 1973 in Kingsport, Tennessee. Her mother grew up in Mount Carmel, Tennessee, and her father grew up in Bloomingdale in Kingsport, Tennessee. She graduated from Volunteer High School in Churchill, Tennessee, and also completed beauty school and received a Tennessee cosmetologist license in 2000. In the past, she has been a server, a cosmetologist, owned her own beauty shop, and then became an office manager. When I asked her as a child if she recalled any adult ever discussing prejudice with her and what they told her, she told me that she was taught to not be prejudiced. God created everyone equally. Society makes us question that at times, but that is her belief. When I asked her if people have told her an unwritten thing about prejudice, she told me that no, she has always been taught to treat others with respect no matter how they treat her. This is hard to do at times, but that always makes you a better person. When I asked her her first experience of meeting someone different than her, she told me that she remembers in elementary school realizing that some people were different than others. It did make her want to try harder to help them and take up for them. As an adult, she still feels the same. But as she has grown older, she has realized that some people are mean to others to cover up something wrong in their life. So instead of getting angry with them, she has learned that they need kindness and help also. When I asked her if there was a national event that has changed her mind about prejudice, she told me that 9/11 was the first thing to come to mind. 9/11. It was and still an indescribable act that her mind will never comprehend. It makes her question how terrorists could hate us so much without even knowing us. She told me that there were no personal events that have influenced her thinking. She is very strong-willed and minded and not easily influenced. When I asked her how she has taught her children about prejudice, she told me that she has taught me the exact way that she thinks. God created us all equal, and we are equal, and I've believed that my whole life. She thinks that the problem of prejudice has worsened over the years because people are selfish when they should learn to be selfless. Everyone blames everyone else for all the problems in the world when they could look in the mirror at themselves and start making changes there. When I asked her who had an influence most about diversity, she told me that her family and many teachers in school had influenced her about worldly views, but it was up to her to decide how to take what they had taught her and choose the way to live. She believes that her responsibility in combating prejudice is sticking to her beliefs. It's her responsibility to teach herself as well as me, her child, as I grew up, but now that I'm an adult, it's up to me to choose how I believe. We are all responsible for ourselves. She told me that no matter what we think should be done about discrimination and prejudice, she honestly does not think that it will ever be under control. The world is a mess, and no matter how we try to handle it, she does not believe that there will be a solution. Now I'm going to review my aunts. Just a second, let me pull up my information. My mom's name is Elizabeth Hutchins, by the way, I forgot to mention that. My aunt's name is Patty White. She was born in Greene County, Greenville, Tennessee, the second child of 5. She was a World War II baby boomer. Her father was a carpenter as well as a World War II prisoner of war. Her mother was a homemaker. They moved to Kingsport when she was a young child, very poor, but she didn't know it. They learned to be self-sufficient, did for ourselves without relying on anyone. They lived in a 2-bedroom house for all 8 of them, with an outhouse and no heat. They had a spring to pump water and a stove to produce heat. She finished school and took some college courses in order to be an LPN, but she then married into a middle-income family like hers, and they have now been married for 46 years. During the time that she became married, she decided to, instead of being an LPN, she would like to become a floral designer and an interior designer. She has also worked at the Eastman, owned her own business in an antique shop, Her husband is a retired firefighter and a policeman. Her father died young, 57, from cancer, and her mother is still living. When I asked her as a child if she recalled any adult ever discussing prejudice with her and what they said, she told me yes, her dad did. Her dad did not like and did not think that you ought to be prejudiced, but understood why people were. In her generation, you were taught prejudice, but when her dad was in the service, he was in the service with all races. Was her dad prejudiced? Yes, he was. But he knew how others reacted to black people, but also how the black would react to us. Her mother was prejudiced to an extent. She never really had the experience of being around other nationalities during her childhood. While her dad had been both up north, down south, and in other countries, her mom stayed home with them. Her family also comes from a Cherokee Indian bloodline in Bryson City, North Carolina. When I asked her that sometimes people tell children one thing but model another, if she picked up any unwritten rules from the adults in her life without having to interact with those who were different than her, she said, oh yes. It was always treat the people the way that you wanted to be treated, but still always on guard, especially with those of another race. When I asked her the first time that she had noticed that someone was different with her and how she reacted around them, she told me it occurred when she was in high school, and they started allowing blacks to be in the regular school system without being segregated anymore. There was this little black girl, and there was really no difference in her thoughts when it came to her. She acted no different, and then my aunt was put in the hospital with tuberculosis. She was 16 years old, and the hospital staff asked her if she would be okay with rooming with a little black girl, and she said yes. They had the most fun for the 2 months that they spent together being in the same room. My aunt was the first person in the hospital to ever allow a black person to room with her. She saw no difference in the way that the little girl or her family acted when compared to herself. They were very nice people. When I asked her to think back over her life and identify any events that happened on a national or regional level that influenced her thinking about prejudice or other groups of people in general, she told me that the event that had the most impact on her and how she felt were the civil rights in Selma, Alabama. What the white people did to the blacks during that time is really what changed her mind about blacks. What the white people did was not right. Black people have rights just as well as white people do. They are humans. They are humans just like us. People who were high up in society, such as state troopers, were killing unarmed blacks who were only wanting the rights to vote, and it was wrong. When I asked her if any personal events that have influenced her thinking, she told me that the national effects of TV on human rights affected her too. We all have human rights. The Constitution says that we are all endowed. Like when Lincoln freed the slaves, I really don't think that he knew what he was freeing them to. That was her response. When I asked her if she thought that the problem of prejudice in the United States has improved, gotten worse, or stayed the same, and how she thought, she told me that it's not right. We all have human rights. We are all human beings, and we all have rights no matter what color our skin is. It is just a skin color. We could have just as easily been born black. She would say that from the system that we are in now to what it was when she grew up, that the relations between whites and blacks have gotten worse. She feels that it may have even gotten worse. Whites and blacks still resent one another, and after all that has happened, she thinks there will always be an issue there. She honestly feels that there has not been much change. When I asked her who she believed had the most influence on her views about diversity, family, peers, teachers, the media, religion, or her community, she told me that it was her religion. She said that her faith is most important because we are taught that we are all God's children. The Lord made us all, and one day, when we stand before Him, it will all be ended. There will be no more fighting, there will be no more hatred, and there will be no more difference. When I asked her what, if anything, did she believe that was her responsibility in combating prejudice, she told me that her responsibility was to treat other people the way that she would want to be treated. She does not look on the skin of a person, but looks on the inside, their heart, their values, and what they believe. When I asked her how she believed that prejudice and discrimination should be different in the future in the U.S., she told me that was a good question. Once a word is spoken, it cannot be taken back. Once something is done, it cannot be taken back. What has happened in the past will never be forgotten, so she believes that the problem will always be there. I agree with both of their answers, and I think it's very interesting to look back and see what the difference is in prejudice then, a long time ago, and then now. This project really opened my eyes to prejudice. I've never really thought about it that much. There's black people in my family, and I don't see anybody as different. My great aunt and my mom have both taught me that. Thank you.